So if you're going to be planning a trip to the beautiful island of Madeira, Portugal, off the coast of Morocco, and you plan to rent a car when you're there and take a leisurely cruise around the island, I've just got one thing to say to you right now. We are Dennis and Min. Come join us on our traveling adventures around the world. Okay, so yes, driving on the island of Madeira is really not a laughing matter. So there's important tips I'm going to cover in this video, but you should really check out another video we did on how to drive in Portugal. The link's going to be down there in the description because I'm not going to cover everything that I covered in that video. There are certain parts of driving in mainland Portugal from a US perspective that definitely you're going to want to know about coming here to Madeira. Okay, a couple items I will touch on from that video, but I'm not going to touch on everything. So please review that video. I'm not going to get into so much of the overlapping material. So for these 10 tips, before we get into the 10 tips, please, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to our channel. We'd really, really appreciate that so much. And thank you for sticking with us all this way. And when you first fly into Madeira, it's an island, so that's more likely than other how you're going to end up getting here. You are going to have to fly into Funchal, but you're not actually flying into Funchal. But from most every country, city that you're going to be coming from, it says that you're flying into Funchal. And just to let you know, the airport is actually in Santa Cruz, which is on the east part of the island, and it's about 20 minutes from the city of Funchal. So the airport is not in Funchal, just to make sure you understand that. So there's going to be a little bit of a distance between the city, where a lot of the hotels are, and the airport itself. So you're going to be flying into Ronaldo Cristiano Airport, and it's one of the scariest airports, places to land in the world, they say. And there's been 2 occasions. One, we actually were 20 minutes away from landing here the first time we were coming to Madeira and got turned around because of bad weather. About a month ago, we were flying in here, and right as we were about to land, we had to do like almost a touch and go. We had to abort the landing and go up and around, and then we made a safe landing. But there was a really bad tailwind that they weren't prepared for, but they were the second time around. That kind of stuff is normal here. And so just be prepared that if there's any flight that you probably want to consider travel insurance for, or insuring that flight to Madeira, wouldn't be a bad idea because of the weather is really hit and miss here. And I believe it's still the case, but there's a certain wind velocity that once it exceeds that amount, then they cancel all flights coming into the airport. So you might want to consider insurance. And then when you get here to the airport, there are many places you can rent cars. You can also, if you're staying in the city of Funchal, there's many places that you can rent cars in the city just the same. A couple things I'm going to touch on before I get into the top 10 tips to driving in Madeira is there's a lot of mountains, a lot of hills, a lot of curves. And if you're comfortable using an automatic, they do have some available here. You will pay a higher fare per day for those automatic cars, but they aren't going to serve you as well as a stick shift or a manual because of the need to have to get a lot of speed up and going because of the hills, the turns and such. So hopefully you can drive a stick shift. And so I would recommend that highly when you are here. Okay, we're going to get into the number 1 tip. Driving in Madeira are tunnels. There are a lot of tunnels, and they really are masters of having engineered these tunnels through these mountains and volcanic rock. And they're really nice tunnels, but just note that right as you get out of the airport, you're going to be hitting these tunnels. So just be prepared. They're well lit, they're well marked. Just, go the speed limit. But there's a lot of tunnels. Some of them are short. Some of them are really long. And you're going to wonder, does this ever come out? Am I ever going to see light again? And you will. But just be prepared. There's a lot of tunnels, and it really is a time saver because before those tunnels were put in place, of course, you were having to go up and down these mountains, and that really took a long time. And those old roads are still there, but this is much of a time saver being able to utilize those tunnels. Second item, driving in Madeira, is the roads are winding and very narrow, and there's so many curves. So I don't think there's much of any stretch of road that is more than the length of a football field that is not curved. So maybe there's a straightaway for like the length of a football field, but most everywhere you go on this island, there's a lot of curves and turns, windiness, a lot of steep inclines. So that's why you need the stick shift, and there's blind corners, blind intersections. I mean, you name it, they've got it here. So you just have to be careful, really use caution when you're driving because, you just don't know what to expect. There could be a big bus rounding the corner, and they will, be needing that space to make the turn, come into your lane. If you're oncoming, you just got to be careful. Sometimes there's animals in the road. Yes, you got to be careful. Some of you might like fresh lamb for dinner, but you don't want it that fresh. Okay. The other item would be buses. That's the third tip for driving in Madeira. There are buses all over this island, and that's a good thing because their public transportation is really well suited for people that don't have a car, don't need a car. And these buses go places you wouldn't believe. I mean, they'll go all the way to the top mountain here, and these winding, crazy narrow roads that you just think there's no way a bus would be up here. Sure enough, there will be a bus, and it's like, wow. So people, even though it's a 2-lane road, sometimes cars are parked along the right side. And they do, by the way, if you didn't know, they drive, if you're from the US, they drive on the right side of the road. So you're going to be very familiar with that. The steering wheel is on the left, just like things are in the US. So that's very comforting. But they'll park their cars along the right side of the road, which is, really in the lane. So you have to drive kind of down the striped line, and you're kind of in the other oncoming car's lane because there's all these parked cars along the right. So you just have to be careful. People are very understanding and will, move over and, let you pass and vice versa just to make it work so people can get through. So you just got to be careful about the buses and how much space they need, and you'll see them everywhere. So don't think like, oh, I can cut this corner here and there's probably not going to be a bus coming. No, just expect that there could be a bus coming at you from any direction at any time. Okay, number 4 tip, driving in Madeira, and this is a very important one. It's a very dangerous situation when you are having to merge onto a very busy street, and in some cases it's the main highway that goes through the town, the city of Funchal. And so there's a lot of areas where there's just no room to have a designated separate merging lane. So you pull up and you would think that you can just start merging on this one lane and then slowly move your way over with your left blinker on to merge into the slow lane, right? That does happen. Sometimes there is that merging lane, but very often there's no merge lane at all. So you have to just come to the edge of this highway and you see these cars zipping by, and you have to look over your shoulder and or be looking at your mirror, and you just have to time it and hope and pray that there is not a car coming in the slow lane, because they're still coming pretty fast in that slow lane. And you're just pulling out. You've got to go like from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds, to try to get caught up in that momentum of the traffic flow. It's a little stressful. No, it's very stressful. So be prepared for that. And you might be thinking at nighttime, it might be even more dangerous. I find it's actually a little bit better because you can see their headlights coming. And then if you don't see any headlights coming, it's probably safe to move out into the highway. So I don't want to scare anybody, but again, it's doable. I'm hoping this will help because you'll be prepared for this. Because if you come in blind, it's going to be overwhelming. Okay, so just be careful when you are going onto a busy street. Don't assume that you're going to have this merge lane where you can have 100 meters or 300 or 500 meters before you can merge into the regular flow of traffic. No, some cases that is true, but other areas no. So just be very careful with regards to that. And number five tip for driving in Madeira is driving in the city, the capital of Madeira, which is Funchal. If you really want to elevate your blood pressure, drive a car in Funchal. And the bigger the car, the better your blood pressure is at going up, for sure. Because a lot of these parts of the city, especially in the inner part of Funchal, just like any other Portuguese European town, city, the roads are very narrow because these buildings, the cities were built before cars, right? Horses could get through, no problem. But now with cars, not so much. So there's a lot of one-way streets. There's a lot of inclines. There's a lot of areas where you're not sure if it's two-way, if it's one-way. Again, another reason to check out the road signs before you get here so you're a little bit familiar with those. And again, it can be very confusing, overwhelming. The good news is I found the people that are also driving on the roads and the locals are pretty patient and understanding. I've actually gone the wrong way on a street and people are like, hey, they'll let you know, they won't be rude about it. That's my experience. So they want everybody to be safe. So just note that in the city of Funchal, be careful, because there's a lot of windy roads, one-way streets, four-way intersections where you're not sure. I've been through to some four-way intersections, and I don't see a stop sign for anybody on any direction. I don't know. It's I don't know if I'm supposed to stop. I should stop, but just always when you enter an intersection, play it safe. Because sometimes it's not always so evident. And number 6 is crosswalks. I did mention this in my other video about driving in Portugal. I'm going to reiterate that importance here. Now, they're really good about stopping for people when they're in crosswalks. Unlike other places that I've been, other cities where you're taking your life in your hands sometimes by, jumping in that crosswalk and assuming that car is going to stop. Here and throughout most of Portugal where I've been, they're very, very good about stopping. In fact, just outside of where we're staying here, less than a week ago, there was 2 girls that were hit walking in a crosswalk. I know one of them was really critical. Hoping all is okay with them, but you just have to be careful. And sometimes these crosswalks will appear because you're kind of going over a little bit of a hill and then there's a crosswalk. So you just drive and anticipate that there could be a crosswalk anywhere at any time. And especially if you're in the cities, in and around Funchal, they're all over the place. And that's a good thing. And some of the people crossing, the pedestrians, just aren't always so, I guess they're overconfident that people are going to stop. So, sometimes they're not even looking. They're just crossing the road, and sometimes they're distracted because they got their phone or whatever, talking to somebody. So you need to be on the alert when you're driving and be looking for people that are possibly going to be stepping out into that crosswalk. Okay, so be careful with those. Okay, getting down to the final few here. So number seven, driving tip in Madeira, Portugal is the roundabouts, also known as traffic circles. Now, these are a very efficient way of being able to get through an intersection, but there is a certain way that you need to navigate yourself through that roundabout. Do refer to my other video where I did get into some specific details and a map showing how you are to get through these traffic circles, these roundabouts. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this video for that since I already covered that. But I will maybe show a brief diagram, but make sure you follow that. Generally speaking, if you are going to be getting out the first exit of that roundabout, you should be in the right lane, because oftentimes there's 2 lanes, sometimes 3, but often there's 2 lanes going into the roundabout, the traffic circle. So if you are going to be exiting the 2nd, the 3rd, 4th exit, then you're going to need to be in the left lane, okay? And you're going to be going into the lane closest to the circle, that roundabout, okay, the interior, and you only are going to be on the exterior of the roundabout, the outside lane, the slow lane, if you're going to be exiting the first exit. Otherwise, you're going to be in the left lane. And then you put your turn signal on left as you're going around that roundabout. And then when you are ready to exit, then you put your right turn signal light signal on, so people know that, okay, now this guy is merging over to get out of the roundabout, okay? So hope that helps. Very, very important. Okay, number 8, and I did cover this briefly in my other video, but this is no different in Portugal. Tip number 8, driving in Madeira, is GPS. Not very reliable. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. If you've had any success with any GPS system, please drop a comment and let me know, if not just for Madeira, for mainland Portugal, because I have tried several and all of them fail me. They work a lot of times, but they're not reliable 100%, by no means. That's Waze, that's Google Maps, that's the iPhone map, and so on. So let me know if you've had any success with anything else, but take the GPS directions with a grain of salt. Really look at the route that you've chosen and make sure it makes sense, and the time that it's telling you, because yeah, it's not 100% in the US either, right? But it's even less reliable, I found, here in Portugal, and Madeira is no different. So it's very challenging also because, especially in and around the city of Funchal, you've got a lot of streets, coming together, merging, breaking off from each other. So if you're driving on these roads and trying to follow GPS, really stressful, because if you're on a street, a highway, and you've got a lane coming on and 2 lanes going off, it's hard to follow, right? Because you can't look at the screen the whole time. And as I said earlier, you're on like a constant curve, right? And the roads are really windy. So you really have to be paying attention for that. Which leads me to the number 9 tip for driving in Madeira, is try to drive everywhere you go with caution. As we would say in Hawaii, drive with aloha. They're really good about that in Hawaii. And I found for the most part, people do drive with aloha here, the locals, and they really want a safe experience for everybody. So just be very cautious. And the number 10, save this, the best for last, the number 10 driving tip when in Madeira, this is so important, is to love your driver, okay? If you are not driving, if you are a spouse, a partner, a child, anybody else, okay, please recognize that your driver, give them a pat on the back, give them a massage. You need to put on some nice, relaxing music for them, some nice, cool jazz, whatever. But whatever it takes to keep things under control and mellow, because it does not help if you're trying to navigate this GPS, you're in an unfamiliar area, the roads are crazy, hilly, steep altitudes and one-way streets, and you're getting lost and you're getting frustrated, the last thing that you need to hear is something cynical from your spouse or your adult child or whoever you're with criticizing your driving. Oh, right? There's that old Indian saying, right? You should walk a mile in your brother's moccasins before criticizing, right? Something like that. But love your driver, because it is not going to be a very pleasant and pleasurable experience for them some of the time. All the time is not the case. There are some beautiful areas of Madeira and the island where it's not quite as stressful. But if you're driving in and around the city of Funchal, between the airport and Funchal, it can be a little stressful if you're here for the first time. So that's why I've done this video, because I've been there, I've done that, and I know how stressful. It's still stressful. And I've been here multiple times to Madeira, renting a car each time, and I always, at some point, get stressed. But I'm getting less stressed each time, if that makes any difference. So I hope these tips help you guys. Please like and subscribe. Drop a comment and let me know if you've been to this beautiful island of Madeira. And we're going to be giving you some more great videos about this island out in the middle of the Atlantic. That's such great Portuguese culture. So stay tuned for more, and we look forward to seeing you again.